Now call me paranoid, but I have the sneaky suspicion, which I've mentioned a couple times now, that each faction is having its moment in the spotlight, a major narrative being evolved by Games Workshop on how each one threatens to end the Imperium or wider galaxy in some way, before finally the stage is set for an all-consuming war, the likes of which we've never witnessed before. So I want to give some love to the Xenos connoisseurs out there, those who wait 9 editions of the game for their army to receive new lore and models, only to be left hanging for years afterwards. So we're going to explore together the most recent, hard-hitting, lore-evolving narratives for each Xenos faction. There is no Imperium or Chaos here today, but if you need a new lore fix of that, go check out one of the many videos we've already published. Firstly, if you'd like to show your support, please consider subscribing, liking, hitting the notification bell and sharing. All these things help immensely when it comes to spreading our videos throughout the 40k community, so thank you. Necrons. The galaxy-wide implications of the Silent King's return have only been grasped by such keen minds as Belisarius Cawl or Rabute Guilliman, but maybe even the Hive Mind. We'll see how that develops. Within a reality literally torn in half, cleaved through by hell itself, the fractured, previously dormant race of Necron pose an insidious threat to all other living beings within the Milky Way. But don't consider all hope lost, for often the Necrons are thought of as one faction, whereas what should be known is that the politicking manipulations of dynastic nobles is a constant hindrance to the true unity the Silent King himself seeks to enforce. Even within the Nephilim sector, an area of space from which the Silent King's greatest machination currently unfolds, his nobles war among themselves. Many assets, both terrestrial as well as void-based, are removed from play due to the petty power struggles present within this unreliable hierarchy. But the Silent King is nothing if not a bastion of pure might, and even though ambition drives some of his most trusted lieutenants to follow their own whims instead of what is best for the Necron race, the overarching strategy still proceeds as planned. For the Pariah Nexus has been established, despite fierce resistance by Imperial forces. What is important to know regarding this latest project is that there are hundreds of Pariah Nexus currently active, with the largest, most well-known, being located within the Nephilim sector in the galactic south, close to the Crimson Fist's home planet of Rinnsworld. Inside this area of space, through the installation of pylons constructed by a warp nulling material known as Blackstone or Noctilith, the Necrons have once again, as they had eons prior, produced a warp nulling effect throughout reality, held in place by their infamous, trademark, pylon network. What's different about the Pariah Nexus, as opposed to the network established eons prior, the one which kept the warp contained only to the Eye of Terror, is that in its newest form, human beings' willpower is all but sapped from them, referred to as the stilling. Any mundane human caught within the effects of the Pariah Nexus eventually loses the will to do anything, even to breathe it seems, eventually laying down to slowly pass on. The latest mention of the Pariah Nexus saw the Silent King aboard his flagship, itself larger than a lot of moons, and called the Song of Oblivion, destroying entire fleets, armies, even entire planets' worth of defenders. The one rightful leader of the Necron race has arrived once more to find his empire swarming with men. And though sparse Imperial defenders remain within the Nephilim sector to defend against the Silent King's united forces, the hope of an Imperial victory are slim to none. Rabute Guilliman himself was contacted by Imperial Psychers in a request for not only aid, but also to relay to the Primarch the overall tactical situation, the true threat the mysterious Necron race pose to all humanity. But looking to the future now, in what form do we know the Necrons will feature in a new novel? Well, as detailed in our Gene Father video, Belisarius Cawl intends to make Planet 4 onto an ancient world which has been caught in the pull of a black hole for eons. But this isn't any planet. It is a Necron tier planet which has been locked in time, likely since the War in Heaven. But whilst there hasn't been any information regarding a subsequent novel to Gene Father, I'm calling it now that anybody who enjoys Necron lore needs to be on the lookout for Call's adventure onto that planet. Orks. It seems Gork and Mork are, very soon, bound to hold more sway over the material realm than they ever have. It is no secret that the greenskin deities have acted through the champion Ghazghkull for decades now, for how else would one boy rise to such prominence amid a species numbering trillions, if not by divine proclamation? Now, in the era Indomitus Ghazghkull's consciousness is able to travel across the vastness of real space to communicate with his many lieutenants doing battle among the stars. In this way, Ghazghkull is, unbelievably, able to coordinate a larger, galaxy-spanning strategy which may just manage to unite what is likely the most numerous, naturally savage race within the entire Milky Way. The voices of Gork and Mork rage inside Ghazghkull's mind, instructing him to sow the seeds of unrelenting war within the Octarius sector of Ultima Segmentum before moving on to the next unfortunate system. Though where imperial strategists or autarchs of the Aeldari may gaze upon the carnage wrought by the greatest greenskin general to live since the beast itself, none truly can appreciate the severity of their plight. Ghazghkull travels in a fleet numbering millions, an almighty green horde to enshroud the stars themselves. And it is with this current armada that he sets about the final unification of the entire greenskin race. For we have always known the call to war is instinctual for any orc. They flock to conflict under the banner of the biggest and strongest of their kind. When gathered in sufficient numbers, the war energy harnessed by these hordes is enough to overcome systems in a worryingly short amount of time. But through sowing this discord, creating active war zones, among the largest in the current timeline, greenskins will be active in such numbers, creating so much war energy that an almighty greenskin horde will be formed, a united orc army under the banner of their greatest general, set to drown the material realm itself. The era of the orc horde is almost arrived. In but one, perhaps two more major conflicts, the balance will be tipped and sufficient wars merging into one, at last seeing orc kind unified as they once were so long ago, a time when their might overthrew gods. Aeldari. Shattered, lost, ever seeking a means to restore an empire that will, in reality, never again be realized. Aeldari peoples are scattered, some following the disciplined paths, others seeking to unite with more natural elements, whilst others have all but lost their souls amid their many depravities. And whilst numerically, the various Aeldari creeds will not present a threat of the same nature compared to Ghazghkull's united species, or the many undying legions in fealty to the Silent King, they do possess a determination, one which has seen their race survive this long on the edge of annihilation. For in the face of hopeless odds, preyed upon by a dark god, hunted almost to extinction by the galaxy's less sophisticated races, the Aeldari yet survive. But this is not by chance, not merely a stubborn people's resolution to not go quietly, seeing their souls alight one last time before extinction. Nothing so final. Through the subtle art of seers who pluck at the strands of fate, melded with prophecies millennia old, the most ancient and cunning of their people steer great craft worlds, the last bulwark of the craft world Eldar, through a tumultuous future, whilst their darker kin reap a great harvest of souls as well as slaves from the calamity induced by the opening of the Great Rift. In reality though, where the future of these people may in fact lay is, ironically, in the end of their very race. For the united Aeldari faction calling themselves the Inari seek to bring about the birth of an Eldar deity, their god of the dead specifically, named Iniad. Now the Inari have already played a substantial role in the current era, for without the aid of Irain, Roboute Guilliman himself may never have made it to Terra following his reawakening by Belisarius' call. But ultimately, what this rogue faction hopes to achieve is a final end to the chaos deity Slaanesh, which would result in the Aeldari people being able to return to their natural life cycle once more. You see, currently, when an Eldar perishes, their soul is captured within a spirit stone to protect it from being consumed by Slaanesh. Whereas prior to the existence of She Who Thirsts, an Eldar upon passing would naturally be reincarnated into a new body. There are supposedly two paths in achieving this. At least, that's what the likes of Eldrad, as well as Yvraine, an Aeldari who is infused with a portion of Inyad's power, believe. One path is ultimately unattainable now, for it was believed that should all 5 fabled Eldar crone swords be united, this would channel the essence of Inyad enough to achieve the destruction of Slaanesh completely. Forever keeping one eye on the scheming Inari, Slaanesh was aware of this and had its most accomplished hunter, Shalaxi Hellbane, relocate the very last crone sword to the palace of Slaanesh itself. And if there was one place in the material or immaterial realms an Aeldari would never dare to venture, then it is the palace of She Who Thirsts. Though it isn't just the youngest Chaos God who seeks to sidetrack Yvraine, for it seems when the gladiatress transmogrified into Inyad's mortal champion, soaking into herself the essence of a god, so too did the status of her enemies elevate. For none less than Asdrubal Vecht himself, ultimate lord of the Drukhari race, seeks to end the threat to his esteem in which Yvraine poses. You see, Yvraine's host, this newly founded Inari faction, is composed of Aeldari from all walks of life. Not only do craft-worlders, exodites, and even disciples of the Laughing God pledge their loyalty to the Prophet, but so too their dark cousins from Comera. And Asdrubal Vecht does not share power, nor influence. He has already made one attempt on her life, sending a swift host onto the craft world Samhan itself in a bid to assassinate Yvraine, though they were ultimately unsuccessful. And so last we see Yvraine, as well as her cold, calculating counterpart Eldrad Ulthran, they scheme as only Aeldari can do, to bring about the Rana Dandra, or End of Days in their Xenos tongue. For once all Aeldari souls have been united with Inyad in death, will the God of the Dead be powerful enough to end the threat of She Who Thirsts, once more allowing all deceased Aeldari to begin anew their natural life cycle, beginning with reincarnation. All dead Aeldari. Tyranids. There are those who believe the Tyranid menace which currently plagues the Milky Way galaxy is but a probing tendril, merely forerunners to a wider horde of such immense scale that there is ultimately no hope of defense. And whilst this suspicion may yet prove true, for the time being these tendrils have achieved far more than simply scrutinize the Milky Way galaxy's inhabitants. The Great Devourer, as it has become known, continuously evolves in ways which ensure its superiority upon the battlefields of the 41st millennium, with new bioforms such as Neurotyrants and Screamer Killers taking to the field to carve their way through the Imperium's greatest defences, leading to the realm of Terra itself. Yes, not only do 4 immense hive fleets power through the galactic plane all the way from the Milky Way's northeast to southeast, but Hive Fleet Leviathan approaches from below the galactic plane itself, the ideal unsuspected entry in which to complement the efforts of Hive Fleet Hydra to the galactic south in Segmentum Tempestus. And whilst these hive fleets pose danger enough to make any mortal question the longevity of the Imperium, the newest Tyranid threat to emerge in the galactic west will surely seal the fate of mankind. You see, what Imperial resources could be spared following the Great Rift's formation were deployed en masse in a defensive line spanning planets and entire systems, dubbed the Sanctus Line, the last bastion of Imperial hope to shield Imperium Sanctus from the hive mind's ravenous attentions. Unfortunately, as we've summarised in great detail here, the Sanctus Line was pierced. Leviathan has produced not only a great horde of chitinous death, but amid its masses skulk bioforms never before witnessed. Great lumbering Leviathans which command their lesser kin with the precision of a seasoned captain, whilst their mass and bioweaponry make short work of even Astartes' champions. And now, not even the combined might of the Adeptus Custodes, Astartes, and Astra Militarum were sufficient in halting Leviathan's approach, for the Tyranid menace draws ever closer to Terra itself, having pierced the Sanctus Line and spilling into Segmentum Solar. Tau. The Tau race has, against all odds, managed to expand their people's empire as well as influence beyond their initial cradle world. Initially threatened by extinction in the face of the Imperium's Damocles Gulf Crusade, before being saved by an unlikely mutual enemy in the form of High Fleet Behemoth, the Tau Empire has managed for some time now to stay under the radar of most major factions. This is due more so to the fact that the Tau Empire is quite small in size, even if the realm's military might is quite threatening. From these humble, near catastrophic beginnings, the Tau Empire, upon formation of the Rift, has embarked upon its 5th stage of expansion, an event 4,000 years after the first Tau exploratory teams left their home world of the same name. However, with exploratory teams migrating ever outward, it was only a matter of time until far worse predators than Orks or Tyranids were encountered. For toward the final closing of M41, the Tau Empire fights against its own creed as much as it does the insidious threat of chaos. You see, prior to the successful closing of the 4th sphere, whilst in warp transit, the Great Rift flooded into real space, an event which had significant repercussions for the 4th's main fleet, who at this time were in the unfortunate position of warp transit. At once demons, creatures completely unfamiliar to the young Tau, materialized aboard their vessels, and though it is widely known that Tau themselves possess little in the way of a visible soul in the warp, this is not the case for their auxiliary races such as the Kroot or mankind. Maddening visions turned erstwhile comrades into murderous abominations, whilst creatures seemingly pulled from the worst nightmares flickered in and out of existence, level to level, feasting on those unfortunates who are not able to mount a solid enough defence. And here, the 4th phase likely would have ended, were it not for the divine intervention of a truly perverse being, an ideal which had coalesced within the warp, manifesting into a consciousness of magnificent proportions, a new deity known only as Tau Va. This seeming amalgamation of Tau, human, and various other races unified by the creed of the greater good, cast the 4th fleet from the warp and into Imperial space, a region the 4th sphere could found their own frontier. Not only this, as the fleet was ushered out of the warp, their passage carved a clear interdimensional pathway which joins this new frontier territory, referred to by the Tau as Nemia Atoll, to the greater Tau Empire itself. It seems this goddess, a mockery of the greater good in the eyes of all Tau, was in fact a benevolent being. What is known to no other is that the young goddess, prior to her intervention on behalf of the 4th sphere, had made herself known to Shadow Sun in the commander's youth, even saving the young woman's life whilst communicating to her via psychic means. Does this lay the groundwork for further civil dispute among the Tau Empire? As if the far-sight secessionists didn't bring enough shame to the greater good. But it is not merely inter-faction conflict which plagues this young race, for far from the outset of the 5th sphere, efforts to expand the newly acquired territory of Nemia Atoll has brought the 5th fleet, along with the remnants of the 4th, into direct conflict with a fleet of Death Guard, a unified Ork presence, Tyranid organisms, as well as civil disruption in the form of the 4th sphere fire warriors eradicating auxiliaries who were a part of their original fleet. Commander Shadowsun was elected to spearhead the 3rd as well as 5th spheres of expansion for sound reasons, however, and so these early setbacks, both internal as well as alien of nature, have all been met with the same characteristic decisiveness Puatide's truest disciple is known for. It is true that in the newest age, that of Indomitus, a more robust Tau presence should be amassed to push out from Nemia Atoll, but nonetheless, casualties as they may, Shadowsun's forces continue to claim new territory for the greater good, pacifying any who will not relent to the Tau's ideals. Votann. Now I would love to detail the most recent exploits of the Leagues, but sadly we have next to nothing following their codex release. With that, they have featured in the short story 1 Million Years, in which a band of Votann decide to board a Necron vessel much to their eternal misfortune. But more excitingly, we have a Leagues member featuring on this cover, the penultimate novel belonging to the Dawn of Fire series called Hand of Abaddon. Make sure you subscribe to Titan Wargaming so you don't miss out on that one when we cover it. To better understand how truly surrounded by enemies of nigh insurmountable power as well as endless resources the Imperium is, we can see here that compared to the throne world itself, the Nephilim sector, and so the Silent King's diabolical expansion of the Pariah Nexus, pushes from the galactic south, whilst High Fleet Leviathan's breaching of the Sanctus line moves from here in the west, whilst Chaos forces threaten to emerge from either the Great Rift itself or possibly Warzone Nachmund. However, in our video about the recent novel Sea of Souls, it seems the Black Legion are gathering in force in the Eye of Terror itself. So it's anyone's guess at this point from where Abaddon would make himself known for a push on the throne world. If you got this far into the video, make sure you leave a comment with your favourite Xenos character or race and why. Now I want to give a massive shout out to our first ever Warlord Titan tier Patreon Nelson. Tier 2 of 3 provides you with all the perks of Tier 1, which is monthly voting on what topic we'll create a YouTube video about, as well as access to the Patreon section of our Discord, so we can keep in contact easily. But Tier 2 also means Nelson's name appears in each video, as well as getting a shout out by me every time. So thank you so much for your support, mate. Tier 3, for those curious, of course grants you access to the same perks as Tier 1 and 2, but you'll also receive new high resolution artwork from the talented artists of the 40k community each month. That's huge value which you can then use for posters in your home or office, whatever you like. And of course our Discord is free to join, so if you'd like to chat hobby or lore, swing on over using the invite within the video's descriptions. We'd love to have you. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take it easy and have a good one.